Evening, everyone.
Evening.
Good evening. Hope you're all well.
Yes, very well. And yourself?
I'm fine, thank you. Nice to see you all. I'm just waiting for a few more people. Evening, everyone.
Evening.
Good evening. Hope you're all well.
Yes, very well. And yourself?
I'm good, fine, thank you. Nice to see you all. Okay, so I won't share yet. Okay. All right, so thank you so much for joining us. If anyone else comes in, then I will just let them in. But what I wanted to do today was just to speak to parents for, especially, you know, our reception and year one students, to let them know about the 7+ exams, because I know that some parents aren't really too sure about what they are. And we always talk about 11+, but there is the 7+ as well. And some parents do know about 7+, and some parents already have children who might have done it or are working towards it. But just so that parents understand the system we are in, because what I found is some parents, even you know, some of our people who've joined us in year 2 completely missed it, or people who have been in year 1 but didn't know that that's what we're actually working towards. So we do make it clear that the 7+ is not compulsory, and it's not you know, that everyone has to do it, but everyone who's with us here from reception is working as if they are eventually going to sit that exam. So I'm just going to break it down and explain exactly what it is and why we want our children to start preparing for it. So as most of you know, when the children start back this week, they are having mock exams. So that even includes our reception children. They will be sitting exam papers in math, English and reasoning. And it's all, you know, to work towards building them up to being on that level with other children when they get to year 2. And the 7+ exam is an exam that they sit in year 2. And I know that some parents know about the SATs, which is also in year 2, but that takes place at the end of year 2, so like May, June, whereas the 7+ exam happens in year 2, but at the beginning, or the first ones, depending on the school, happening around November, and then they can spread across up until January. So I'm just going to break it down and explain the reasons why we have all of our children working towards sitting that exam. So I'm going to share my screen and just do a few notes. And if you want to, you know, write down anything with paper, pen, and all of that, you can do that, okay? So just so that it's very clear. So does anyone know the key stage system? So yes, KS1, KS2. So even though you've got your cameras off, you can just put your hand up and your virtual hand. Just let me know if you know what the KS system is, or if you don't. Yeah, okay, awesome. Okay, good, thank you. So some of you would have heard it. For some of you, if you went to school here, you would remember it, or your children, you might have heard your teachers mention their teachers mentioning it. I mean, their teachers at school, or you might see it in their school report, or, you know. So I'm just going to do a table which will help put things into perspective. So when they're in nursery, they are under something called EYFS. So, you know, that's nursery, preschool. Those are most of the guides and the rules that, you know, nurseries have to follow, that Ofsted rate them on. And it's the early years foundation stage. So they're looking at things like learning through play, that kind of. Once they leave that, in fact, some parts of reception, because until they are 5, they leave the EYFS. So some children in reception are still under EYFS, but ideally from reception, oops, until they get to year 2, that is what we call KS1. And it basically means key stage 1. So by the time they have finished year 2 in July, they should have reached certain goals or have some expectations met. Okay, so they literally take them on a journey from reception year 1 through to year 2. Okay, then we have KS2, which is when they move on to junior school. So, you know, normally they refer to reception to year 2 as the infants. Juniors is KS2. So that is ideally year 3 to year 6. Okay. Now, when they get to this KS2 at the end of year 6, they expect them to be on something called level 4. So in your children's school reports, you might see something like, okay, they're working above the expected or below the expected or working towards the expected, that kind of thing. And when every time they say the expected, they are referring to the fact that by the time your child finishes year 6, so when they are 11 in that summer, they want them to be at level 4. By the time your child reaches age 6, at the end of year 2, they want them to be at about level 2 at the end of year 2 with KS1 and KS2. Then you've got KS3. Now this KS3 and above doesn't apply to you guys yet, but I want to put it there to show you what happens in the school system in the UK. Okay, so KS3 is year 7 to year 9, and then KS4 is our year 10 to year 11. And that's, you know, in this country, when you finish officially at 16 at the end of year 11, KS4 is when you sit your GCSEs. A levels are optional, you know. If you're not African, A levels are optional. So this is, you know, this is like the system that the UK education system uses in order to kind of gauge where children are. And this is what they predominantly use in the state school sector, but also in some independent schools, they might use it as a kind of guide. So some independent schools will still do SATs, KS1, KS2, even though they don't need to, but just to see where their children are. But what I want to show you is for the 7+ exam, those children are here. And they are in, so I'm just going to put a line here, and I'm going to say they are age 6 to 7, depending on when your child's birthday falls. So if your child is born between September and December, then they will turn 7, you know, quite quickly whilst they're in year 2. If your child is not born until the 30th or 31st of August, then they're going to be 6 for a very long time in year 2. Yet they expect them to sit this exam, the 7+ exam, when, oops, there's somebody else. They expect them to sit the 7+ exam, you know, at the beginning. The last exams that would take would be in January. So it's still relatively new into the term of starting year 2, okay? And in order to pass the exam really well, because it is very competitive, your child needs to be working on the level of, let's say, in the region of 8 to 10 years. So when we're preparing children for the 7+ exam, I would say just before January, so over that Christmas holiday, they will literally be on workbooks for age 9 or 9 to 10 if we're really stretching them. And remember, they are still 6. And this region here is the equivalent of children in the KS2 bracket. Okay, so what happens is the children who sit this exam enter into independent schools to start year 3. And the reason why a lot of parents would like their children to sit that exam is because if they can get them into a really good school from year 3 and it has a follow through school up until GCSEs and A levels, then their child will just, carry on through the system, ideally if everything goes fine, and they don't need to really worry about doing the 11th unless they want them to, try for other schools. But if it's your dream school and you manage to get them in at, age 7, then that's the option a lot of parents go for. And that is why it is very, very competitive. But that's not the main thing. The main thing is the fact that children in year 2 are sitting this exam and are being prepared for that exam, then the children who are not being prepared for that exam are still going to meet each other later down the line when they all get to year 6 and they're doing the 11 plus. So if you've had a child who from age 6, 7 is on this level of 8 to 10, by the time they get to year 4, year 5, year 6, when they eventually sit their 11 plus, they are literally miles ahead of their contemporaries. So that's why with us, we've got children from all different sectors, all different types of schools, but we're working as if we are all working towards that goal. Everyone has different levels, and everyone is working at their own pace. And some parents here, you would know that we might have some reception children who are working with year 1. We might have some year 1s who are working with reception to fill in some gaps. We might have some who are doing some things a bit of one-to-one to fill out some gaps. But ideally, everybody knows the target is working like that, so that your child does not get left behind in this system compared to what's going on in the other system. And the other thing I want to make clear is in this country, when they do get to year 11 at the end of Key Stage 4, because remember, GCSEs are sat in May, June. So at the end of their academic year, or towards the end of their academic year, we have only 43% who pass in their math and English. And that's just the UK national average, okay? And that is a very sad statistic. The way I always describe it is I feel like it's a pandemic, because for as great as the UK is, we only have 43% of students who pass at the age of 16. And the reason for that is because the expectations in general in this country in a normal school is quite low. So if you just have it in your mind that the expectation itself is low, then you need to be pushing to be doing more, because the schools won't always, in fact, the schools will hardly do that for you. And this is something that occurs mainly in the state sector, but even the independent sector is not exempt from it. So sometimes you can have some independent schools where they're happy to just taking your money and your termly fees, but are they really pushing the children, or are they really pushing your children? Are they really doing everything they can so that there's a reason for the difference that we're supposed to be seeing between children who are going to pass eventually and children who are going to drop out of that 43% when they get to 16. And the reason why this figure is so low is because in this country, no matter how you perform, at the end of the day, whether you do well or you don't, whether you can read or you can't, once September comes, you go to the next year group, okay? So they might do things like differentiation in their planning to give you maybe some extra work or something, but regardless, you could still be at the level of someone in reception, but you're in a year 2 class. And if you've got someone who's got the ability of someone in reception in year 2, which is at the end of KS1, they will mark you down as working below the expected, but regardless, you're going to move on to year 3, to the junior school in KS2. And you will literally be in that pattern or in that system until you get to age 10, 11, and they expect you to be on level 4. This 8 to 10 is the equivalent of level 4. So we have children who have been prepped and prepared for the 7+. Once they enter year 3, they are already on level 4, which this country expects children to be at the end of year 6. And that's why you find that as they go through the ranks, there is no push in general to get past this 43% pass rate. That's literally, you can check on gov.uk. It's the national pass rate for GCSE in the UK. So what's really important to note though, is if there's anything that can be done to fix it and to avoid this happening, is it starts from down here. So when they are 3 years old, so we've got people who are in the reception group, but actually aren't ready for reception yet. They don't start reception until September. But if you can start these things early, then it just makes the process a lot easier for them, and it's something that they get used to. So something that I want parents to, you know, ask your children's teachers at school is, you know, when they give you your progress reports, don't be afraid to ask them, what does it mean? Because, you know, they might have something like, oh, they've done really well this term. They got 1, 2, and 3, but they haven't actually explained what 1 represents, or what 2 represents, or what 3 represents. And if they've said, oh, she's working towards the target, what exactly is the target? Because the target is to get to the end of level 2 or the end of level 3. But what does the level 2 mean? What does level 3 mean? And unfortunately, at the end of year 2, when they used to do the official stats, it was an easy way for people to, for schools and parents to see, you know, where their children were. Because people complained and they said it was a bit too much pressure on the children, they scrapped making it compulsory, so they don't grade them in the national curriculum way anymore. So the schools kind of have the leeway of grading them how they want to. So if they say, oh, working towards the expected, we need to know what the expected is. So it's important that you ask your teachers what it is. And for some parents, they haven't actually had a report or a progress update or feedback since last year. So right now we are about to start a new term, and it's the final term of the year. So if your children are in reception, you want to, as you're going back to school this term, or I think they started that last week, just send an email over and say, this is the final term of the year for those who are leaving reception and going to year 1 next year. And for those who are in year 1 and going to year 2 next year, this is the final term of the year. I would like to know where my child currently is and what steps are going to be put into place this term for them to reach their targets. And then you want to ask, what exactly is the expected target? Because I'm going to show you, I'll stop sharing now. I'm going to show you a few examples of some schools and what their results look like. So, and one of the key things is to not focus, and I always say this, is to not focus on things like Ofsted results, because Ofsted is only monitoring things like, do the children have enough creativity? Are they given enough choice? Is the filing in order? That kind of thing. But it doesn't necessarily guarantee that actual learning is taking place. So I've taken a selection of different schools from different areas, just so that parents can see. And even for you, you literally just go to compare school performance, and you can put in your child's school and check what their performance is. But just so that you understand what the actual performance tables mean, I'm going to show you that now. Okay, so this is a school based in South Kensington. It's called Our Lady of Victories. It's a normal state school. They have an outstanding Ofsted report, but again, don't be too like that. And what you want to do is type in the name of the school, so whichever school your child goes to, and then these are what you want to look at. The progress score in reading, writing, and math. So those are the main things you're looking out for. So this is if you look at this school, the expected standard in reading, writing, and math at the end of year 6 is 83%. So, and remember, that expected standard is level 4, which children who have done the 7+ are at when they are in year 3. So just to kind of put that into perspective, you've got 6 and 7-year-olds who are meeting this when they're in year 3. And then you've got children who are in year 6 and only 83% are meeting. And this is a really good score. You can see the England average is only 65%. So in our country, when they get to the end of year 2 or year 6, only about 65% of them as a whole are meeting the expectation. And remember, the expectation is low, because that expectation that we are expecting our 10-year-olds to be at is what our 7-year-olds are at already. So if you can just bear in mind that the bar is already down here, and even with that, it's just over half who are meeting it. And then even with the really good schools, something like only 83% are meeting it. So that's just to put things into perspective. And everything that we want to do is to ensure that our children don't fall into that gap. And it's important that you know this, because if you don't know what the school general system is and what the expectations are, even when they're telling you, oh, they're doing really well, you have to ask, yes, but how well is well, if that makes sense. Other thing parents also want to look for is how many pupils are achieving at a higher standard. So in this school, they have about 24% of children who are working at a higher standard. The average in England is about 11%. So for example, the children who have been prepped or who have prepared for the 7+ exam would fall into this category. And you can see it's such a small number compared to the average of 65. And that 43% that I showed you earlier of children who eventually, when they get to 16 and are passing, out of that 43%, it's probably something like 40 or 39% of children who are in the independent sector, or children who are in the grammar schools, or who have extra tuition. And it's just that 13% that make up the difference. So, and those are children who have, I don't know, heavily tutored or have just really, really tried. And the evidence from that happened when exams got cancelled because of COVID, and schools were graded based on their general performance. So you had lots of people in the independent sector scoring A stars and really great grades, even if the individual child did not put the effort in. They were flying on the merits of their school's general performance. And unfortunately, many state schools where their general results are low, things like the national average is 43%. You've got so many schools that are 31, 39 in that range. But if you have students who are very hardworking and who have pushed against the grain, work really hard and get the grades they deserved, those children got bashed together with the general results of their school and all ended up with things like U, E, F, when they should have been awarded A stars, had the chance to do their grade, to sit their exam. So that just goes to show you that it's such a small percent of children who are actually making up the high number. And those are the children who are working really as if they are working towards level 4 when they are still age 6, 7, 8. Okay. So for parents, if you want to check how your school is doing, do go on this website and take a look and see how many students are working above. If it's about 24%, then you can assume that if in your child's school, if they have 3 year groups, or if they have 4 year groups, 4 classes per year, then at least one whole year class in that year are kids that are quite with it, or kids that are pushing. The lower this number is, the less invested the school is to push those kids. If you've got more children who make up the percentage, then the school's resources have to go into that. That's why you'll see some schools that would have the highest gifted and talented children. If they don't have that, then they won't need to put their resources into it because the number is too low. So just look out for what that number is. Okay, I'll show you another one just so you can have an idea. Okay, so this one here is a school, and I want you to see their Ofsted report. Okay, so this is a school in Essex. Their Ofsted report is quite bad or very bad. It says it requires improvement, okay? And I want you to take a look at their scores. So 65% are passing, that's the England average. Theirs is about 67%, so just a bit over the average. And they have about 17% who are working at a higher level. So it's not 24, but it's not, I mean, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. There's only 7% between something that is branded as requires improvement and the other one that was really good, and there's not that much in terms of academic attainment. So that's why I don't want parents to think, oh, it's an outstanding school, because that doesn't necessarily mean that there's outstanding academics. It's things like, is your filing in order? Or did the children have a choice to choose between wanting to do math and wanting to play a video game? Okay, when I ran a breakfast and after school club, I remember Ofsted marked us down because we didn't have we didn't give the children enough choice to dish out their own food at tea time. And being me, I wanted to make 11 plus one of the things that they did whilst they were there instead of playing video games, and they said that I wasn't giving them a choice, so we got marked down for that. Children should be free to make choices of studying or playing on their own. So those are the things that Ofsted look at, not necessarily how on academic performance. So do put your child's school into it and check it and test it, and feel free to hold the school to account. So even if it's not an independent school, it's still taxpayers' money. We're all still paying tax. So there is a duty that needs to, be done towards our children. We're sending them to these academic institutions for a reason. So don't be afraid to say, okay, I've noticed that there are only 17% of children who are working above the expected. And remember, this doesn't necessarily mean it's all great either, because the expected is what our year threes are doing that they're expecting their year sixes to doing. So ideally, this needs to be way bigger. And that is the reason why it happens like that from year 1 to year 2 to year 3, year 3 to year 4, all the way up until they sit their GCSEs in year 11. And the other thing is, in a normal school, they don't have any other official exams. So once they've done the SATs in year 2, and they've done their SATs in year 6, the next official exam they do is when they get to year 11, when they're 16 and they do their GCSE. They might have tests along the way or progress tests, but nothing for parents to be able to really gauge where their children are. Whereas if they've done the 7+ exam, I mean, my son is in reception, age 4, and since September, they've already done 6 exams. Paper 1, paper 2 in math and English, that kind of thing. So it doesn't become alien to them when they finally get to 16 and they're like, okay, sit down and do an exam. It's part of life. So that's why, even for our children here with us, we are doing test papers. As you know, they're all doing mock exams in their first week back, just to, to get them to understand what it's like, and to understand that it's normal to be tested, and for you to be able to test your progress and to be able to work on it and to improve. So I think I'll show you one more school. This one is a very good one because I want to show you, as you can see, their Ofsted report says good. It says it's a good school. However, their reading level is well below the average. Their writing is average and their math is below. They have 52% passing, and this is Ofsted saying it's good. So just for parents to really, really see what is going on in terms of expectation. But I mean, this is just one individual school. When you just remember as a base that in England, all over, it's only 65% who will reach the expected, which we know is already low, then it should just be more fire under all of our bums as parents to make sure that our children outside of school are doing the most. They might not like you now, but they will be very grateful after. Again, here, they've got 6% of children who are working above. And if you've got, 6 out of 100 students who need extra attention, it's not enough for the school to want to, administer as, the resources that they need. And that's why you might find some children who are very intelligent, but they are very bored in school and then become restless. They might become naughty, especially, I don't want to be stereotypical, but a lot of boys who are very intelligent but aren't being stimulated in the classroom, next thing you know, it just seems really exciting to flick your rubber at someone or stand up and shake your bum and make people laugh. Just something to have some form of attention. And instead of channeling it in the right way, they let them go through the system and they end up expelling them. And that's why you end up having so many smart, intelligent children selling drugs and making big business out of it because they're using the logic and their good mindset that they have to something that's really good. So I just think it's important for parents to know and understand exactly what the system is from young. So for parents who are still in reception, or for those who are not starting reception until next year, if you just have it in your mind that this is the target, whether my child is going to be sitting the exam or going to a 7+ school or not, doesn't really matter. It's just the fact that, they're working towards that. Then you know that, okay, I'm making sure there's something going into their brain that they might not necessarily be getting from school. And again, I just want to reiterate, it's not just the state schools, it's independent schools as well. There are so many independent schools that take their children from reception and they're still not doing everything that they should be doing with the children. So it's very important to, just kind of like know your rights and hold them to account and just say, what is the expected target, and what can be done specifically to help my child. Another thing is to look very closely at the reports that they write for your children. When I was doing my teacher training, this is not a lie. They would tell us when it comes to writing reports, to to be efficient, you literally just copy and paste. Some of you might have seen in your children's reports, they have like a pattern that they follow, and it would start with something like, this term we have been studying how to add fractions or something like that, or this term we've been studying the Roman Empire, so and so found it really interesting, blah blah blah. And there's only something really small about the part that's unique to your child. If your child is very, very bright, then they will mention something about that. If your child is struggling, then they will mention something about that. If your child is just kind of average, then I can promise you their report is 100% exactly the same as Benjamin or Lucy's next to them, who's also average, and it's just the name that's changed. Some parents, I'm sure, if you look very carefully, you might even see someone else's name in your child's report, because that is literally how they trained us to do it. So you don't want a generic report. You want to have the individual report for your child. And even when they send the reports, you can ask them, what does my child need to do to get to the next level? Because they will tell you working towards, or this is their level, but they might not necessarily say what needs to be done and how they're monitoring it as well. So it's important for parents to to, let them know that you're on their case and to let them know that you're not going to just let the weeks roll into months, roll into terms, roll into next thing you know, it's summer holiday and they're joining the next academic year and you don't even understand what just happened to your child's education this past year. So, just be on the ball with those things. So in terms of if anyone does want to register for the 7+ exams, I'll just quickly take you through the process. So if I clear all of this. So they will sit the exam in year 2. Depending on the school, it will be either November, December, or January. Okay. And it's literally so it's an independent school, which is a private school, and they will set their own dates, they will set their own papers. Different schools have different criteria, but in general, it will be math, English, verbal reasoning, which we call VR, and NVR, which is non-verbal reasoning. And with English, that will always include a comprehension and essay writing, okay? And essay. And just to let you know how competitive it is, with the essays, they are expecting at least 3/4 of a page of A4, and they want to see paragraphs and things like similes. So literally they are like mini 11+ exams, and they want to see how you're going to fare in their school. If it is a very academic school, this is literally their weaning out process. So they want it's much harder than it needs to be. However, they just want to see. They just want to test. So my son that's in reception, sometimes I might just rip out something from like book 8 to 9 and say, oh, what do you think this is? Or even if he doesn't get it right, just to see how his mind is thinking. What's your approach to trying to answer this question? And, and we do that from time to time, just so that, you're keeping them engaged and knowing that at some point you're going to need to know how to answer these things and structure these things on your own. So when we are in class, we've got the teachers to guide us. I'm talking about in lesson with us. We've got the teachers to guide us to, correct your homework, say, use your story plan. For most of you guys, when you get to year 2, they do really detailed story plans, and they have to make sure if the essay they've written doesn't match the story plan, they have to redo the whole thing again. So it's like very strict, but it's fun at the same time, so don't worry. But it's just to kind of prep them and get them ready for those things, because at school where they're telling you it's okay to write 2 sentences, or it's okay to be able to read with just your phonics, just remember that somewhere there are children the same age who are doing times 10 of that. And if your child has the capability and the ability to do the same, but they're being told by their teachers who, children see their teachers as almost like the be all and everything, that it's okay, you don't need to, it's very difficult for them to want to push themselves. So parents, we are going to have to be the ones, pushing and, just encourage your children to see or be with other children who are doing the same, so they don't feel like it's an isolated journey that they're on. If school is only giving me 2 or 3 words to learn or to look at, why do I need to do 16? But if they can see that Jonathan and Benga and Funke are also doing 16 and they're my friends, then okay, let's do the 16 together. So I wouldn't say force them, but just make it seem like it's natural. And that's why we really wanted our reception parents on this call as well, because the earlier you can start and get them used to this process, the better. So what we'll do is I'll get Micah to email out a list of different schools that parents could look at. You can look at their website, see if it's something that you like. You don't necessarily have to go to the school, remember. It's just for the fact that we want our children to be able to be in a position that they can sit the exam and do really well at it. And then you know that whatever's going on, even when the children who've done the exam are here and the year sixes are here, they're still moving up together, even if the expectation isn't there from the school. So I think at this point, I will just, if there's any questions, I'll answer any questions that people might have. So it could be about the registration or whatever, any questions you have, I'm happy to answer it.
Hi Lola, I had a question. It was just, do Little Scholars House do a specific seven plus preps course, or is it you just continue doing your weekly or bi-weekly sessions, or do you do a specific prep course like you do with the 11
plus? Okay, so essentially everything we do is working towards that anyway. So even some of our reception children, you guys will know, like with Miss Ellie, sometimes she gives you the patterns and stuff. The kids just think it's patterns, but really they're doing nonverbal reasoning. So our syllabus alone is preparing them for it. So I know like when Miss Temi is going through things like adjectives, verbs, that's all part of what they'll be asked. And they won't be asked those things until their stats that they sit at the end of year 2, but that's the stuff that they're doing now. So the workbooks that we use with them, the test book 1, test book 2, ideally by the time they sit their 7+ exam, they will be reaching book 8 to 9. So right now they're on track, because I think you guys are currently finishing 5 to 6 on 6 to 7. So so our program is for that. And then based on whichever school you decide to apply to, because they might have a different criteria. So one school, their exam might be, let's say their comprehension is more based on multiple choice as opposed to full sentences. We will do things like one-to-one sessions about 3 weeks before the actual exam, just to get them familiarized with this particular style. But if you're doing multiple exams, then that means you need to still know everything anyway. And things like the interview as well. So over the Easter program, we did interview and debating with our year 1 group. And those are things that will come up in their 7+ exam as well. Both one-to-one interview at age 6 or age 7 and group interview. And they have to be used to having an opinion and sharing their opinion. So those are things, it's all part of what we do with them.
Great, thank you.
That's okay. Awesome. Any other questions? Nope.
Hello, I have one question. Sorry.
Hi.
Regarding where you shared a link about compare your schools together. Do you know what the equivalent of that would be for independent schools?
Okay.
Or is that something that you need to go to them directly for?
Yeah, so because independent schools are independent, they're not required or obligated to compare themselves. But there is a book, it's called The Guide to Good Schools. And they have a website as well. And, everything you want to know about any independent school, it's in there. Some independent schools is even, like schools like Harrow, Eton, they've even taken themselves off of like the league tables, because they're just like, what's the point? The fact that it's very normal to have 100% pass rate, it means we're not really in comparison with anyone else. It becomes a different thing that we're comparing now. Things like, okay, is your speech and drama department more fulfilling than the one at Wickham Abbey, or that kind of thing. But in terms of academics are they've just become a given, whereas in the other sector they're trying to get there, as in it's 43% that are passing. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That's okay. Okay, all right. So I think that's it if there are no more questions, but hopefully everyone has, a bit more of a clear idea of what exactly the education system is in our country from as young as reception, and the expectations that they have and the expectations that we know are different. Is that Jay Noba? Is your hand up?
Yes, I just wanted to ask a question. Thank you very much for the well laid out presentation. I would use myself as an example. Having looked at the league, that compares schools. Some of our schools do not have, the school my son is going to at the moment does not have that self-comparison on there. And it's very, sorry?
Is it an academy?
No, it's not. It's a Montessori.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's because so academies and Montessori, their system is slightly different and they don't have to publish their results. So in that case, you'd have to go directly to the school and ask them, what are your pass rates? So, and it's really important to not just look at the KS2 one by the time they get to the end of year 6, but you want to look at their KS1 results. So when those children finish year 2, what level are they at? How many of them are meeting what you classify as at least your expected? Because I want to make sure that if my child is with you from reception to year 2, by the time they come out of year 2, reading should not be a problem, writing should not be a problem, working some should not be a problem. So if it's something like, okay, we had like about 33% pass rate, then you know that only a third of those kids are being engaged in the school by the time they come out. So.
Fantastic. And the second question for me, obviously, is, I know currently it's in a Montessori, but then if we're thinking about, like you said, the 7+, with my daughter, I didn't even think about it at all. And she's now in year 4. But for my son, it's something that, now that you're saying it, it's probably getting more, we're more aware of it now, knowing fully well that there's a 7+. But, it's just that sort of preparation. And thank you very much, because I've heard about your tuition, and I think I'm probably going to inquire more about it in terms of looking at how do we then know the curriculum, for them, say is in year 1 now, and how do we know that he's actually meeting those standards and we're not putting so much pressure on him, say for example when we start tuition, extra tuition, for example, how do we know that it's meeting those standards and it's not heavy on the child?
Okay, so so to be 110% honest, it is heavy, and the only reason why it's heavy is because what the children have been exposed to, if they haven't been in that other environment, is very, very relaxed and very, very calm. So it is a bit of pressure at first, because like I said, if at school they're telling you practice 4 words, where really you need to be practicing 20, it's going to be a big jump. So it is heavy, and it's not something that you can kind of take lightly. But with everything, that's why I was saying, something like if you just try and make it something positive and something that he doesn't see as a chore. So just if you start, bit by bit. So something like, okay, every day after school, we're just going to do 5 maths questions, and I want you to write 3 sentences about your day. So just, start kind of small like that to build them up, because eventually, if they're going to be in a position where they're writing 3/4 of a page with paragraphs, spelling, they need to know their times tables, they need to know the difference between an adjective and a verb. They need to know how to work out nonverbal and verbal reasoning codes and things like that. Then it does take work. So it's kind of like, if you want your child to learn an instrument, it's not the kind of thing that you can say, okay, I'm just going to buy you the instrument and, there you go. Like things like, okay, if you don't practice, then it's not going to happen. Or if you don't open the book and look at what the difference between the notes are, it's not going to happen. So I just want to be very, very honest to say it is quite a lot, but we know the reason why, and we know why we're doing what we're doing. So something I always ask parents to do is imagine the kind of adult you want your child to be. So what kind of 30-year-old daughter do you want? What kind of 30-year-old son do you want? And then if you work yourself backwards, what things do you think need to be put in place, or sacrifices that might need to be made in order to get them to that 30-year-old son or 30-year-old daughter that you envision them becoming? So it is a bit of, but we make it fun at the same time. So
Thank you so much.
that's okay. Okay, so there's a question here that says, yeah, okay, so if you do want to send an email to your parents, not to your parents, to your children's teachers, you know, you just want to say, and I would say this is the best time to do it because it is the last term. And the good thing is we still have the half-term break in between, so you're able to practically monitor progress rather than you've asked them something and before you know it's the summer holidays and they're no longer your responsibility because they've moved on to a different teacher in September. So now that they've literally just gone back, send an email to your teachers and say, it's the final term. I'll just like to know where is my child currently working at in the expected level, and what can be done to help her or him in that process of reaching the next expected level, because they always give them targets. It would either say working at or working towards or working below. If they're working below, please tell me what practical things can be done by the school and myself. So don't make it seem like you're just pushing everything onto them because they won't be happy, but just say what kind of things can be done from the school and you know, from myself to help him or her reach the next expected target. And if they say they are working at, we all know that that's not good, because we all need to be working above, because what they're at is already below. So if they're working at, what practical things can be done to get them up? And for the ones who are working up, or if they're working above, remember that's really good, but that working above is still below someone who is in year 3 or year 4 in the other sector. So what can be done to push them more? So it's not all schools are happy about pushing kids, and not all schools want to hear that your children are doing extra work outside. So you don't necessarily need to tell them that they are doing extra work outside, but just say, you know, just me as a parent, I would like to know what things I can do to help him or her, that kind of thing. And then the good thing is if you can send those out now, you can monitor and gauge what they're going to put in place between now and that, is it the May half term? So that between when they come back, between June and July, when they break up for summer, you should be seeing results, or you should be seeing things like tangible things that you know, right, over these summer holidays, these are the things I know I need to work with. I know that so many parents, you know, they get reports, but they don't actually know what it means in terms of where their child actually is. So if you can do that now, whilst the term is still new, it gives you enough time to monitor what's going on between now and the end of the school term. If they pass the 7+, do they qualify for a scholarship? So schools don't do scholarships at 7+, they only do them at 11+ and above. So no, however, they might offer bursaries. So they will look at your individual financial situation and they might be able to offer some % off for bursaries. But ideally, the 7+ is not really the be all and end all in terms of actually going. It's just making sure that your child is at the level that they should be, because it doesn't, you know, in life, if people have the same ability, but one is being stretched and the other isn't, at some point when they, you know, become older, their lives could be so different when it didn't have to be. If it's a case of, you know, your child does not know how to physically read because, you know, they're blind or something like that, then that's a different story. But if you have a child who has a brain and it works, then we need to expose them to these things. Do independent schools offer this exam? Yeah, so it's the individual schools that will offer it. Not all independent schools have a junior school. So the 7+ are for schools who can take you from age 7 or 8 when you start year 3. So some schools literally start from reception and go all the way up to 18, and that's why they have different entry points. They have 4+, they have 7+, they have 13+, and obviously after GCSE A-level, you join at A-level. Some schools, there are some prep schools where they start from 4 or start from 7 and they end in year 8. Those are prep schools, and those are feeder schools to schools like Harrow, Eton, or Wickham Abbey, or Winchester, where some of those schools only start from year 9. So I'm going a bit off track here because that's mainly for the older children, but if an independent school doesn't have a junior school associated with it or connected to it, then obviously they won't do the 7+, because they only start from year 7 when the children are 11, 12, and you have to do 11+. But if the school does start from age 4 or from year 3, then they can offer the 7+. And because it is so competitive at 11+ for some of these really good schools, or even at 13+, if you can get them in from age 7, then you're just laughing. You know that until 18, they are sorted, you know. But again, it's not necessarily about them going to the school. It's more about them being prepared to the level as their peers, so that you know that they are still where they need to be. And even if school is not physically stimulating them, they're still getting that outside with us or wherever, whichever, it doesn't matter, any tuition center, company or whatever. At least there's something going on, because what is really dangerous is someone who has the potential to have like 13 A stars in a place where it's not being drawn out of them, and they end up with Bs. And B is not bad, but if you are a 13 A star student, then getting 1 A star, 5 Bs and 1 C is really, really bad. So yeah. Okay, I think that's the last question. Yeah, all right. So if there is anything else, you can send it across to us, and we'll be happy to email, and we'll send the Guide to Good Schools book as well, so that you can literally just bedtime reading, look through, or they have a website as well, look through their website and just look at schools, and don't rule anything out. Don't look at finances and say, oh, it's completely no. Let's just at least look and see the school first. And God that made heaven and earth can make money appear. So there's nothing that's too hard for him, and there's nothing that's impossible when it comes to our children. So yeah, I hope that's been helpful. I think the biggest takeaway that I just want parents to know is, first of all, what the education system kind of looks like from reception. So reception, year 1, year 2, and the way that they are assessing our children, and the fact that the expectation is already low. So we want to make sure that in everything we are working above and beyond whatever the expectations are. Okay. Yes, we are. So I can send you our admin. Okay. And then if you ask for Larry or Micah, they can send you any information that might be helpful. But yeah, so I hope that's been helpful to parents today. And thank you so much for joining. And if there's no more questions, good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Take care.
Thank you.